Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you, hope everyone's well. Today we are resuming on Surah 2. Last time we had a discussion of the first 20 verses, I believe, and sort of analyzed the theme of the surah and how God has applied it in the first section. So today we're resuming, God willing, with verse 21. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. StreamYard link is in the chat if anyone wanted to join. Salam, Brother Mahdi. So yeah, we'll begin by God's permission. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الناس عبدوا ربكم والذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون الذي جعل لكم الأرض مهدا الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون وإن كنتم في ريب مما نزلنا على عبدنا فأتوا بسورة من مثله. I guess I'll leave that one for the second part. So, O you people, serve your Lord who created you, and those before you, that you may beware. Or, yeah, I guess beware works. Who made for you the earth a spread, and the sky a building, and brought down from the sky water, so he extracted with it from the fruits provision for you. So do not make for God rivals while you know. So I'll give a second to reflect, as usual. Okay, so there is some interesting points maybe that could be mentioned here, such as now God has called, kind of referred to, called by name the people, all of humanity, which is interesting because this is the first time in the Quran, and also the Quran kind of, this is towards the beginning, obviously, the Quran, therefore, and the Quran also kind of ends with a consideration related to the people seeking refuge in the Lord of the people, the King of the people, and the God of the people from the retreating whisper. So the message is actually very simple if you just think about it on the basic level of what God is saying to humanity. Worship your Creator, the one who created you, those before you, the earth, the sky above you, who brought down the rain and brought out with it food. So you have a few horizons, sort of, which are kind of reflecting really nicely. I don't know how exactly to put it, but you're starting with your Creator and those before you temporally. Then you're going to geographically, who made the earth, so you're considering the earth around you, the sky above you. Then from that sky above you, how water comes down, which is the same water you drink in one way or another. And then from that water, out of the ground, he brings out fruits. So it's actually a reflection back and forth. I don't know exactly how to put it, but you start on the earth, then you turn your attention to the sky, then from the sky, you come back to the earth in the form of the water, and out of the earth comes the food. So it almost mirrors it's a bit speculative, obviously, but it almost mirrors the sequence in which a person can appreciate the signs around them to perceive their Lord, so to speak, through his signs. Number one, your immediate surroundings, the earth. I mean, you yourself and your predecessors, but then your immediate surroundings of the earth. Then you look up to the sky, the heaven above you. Then you realize where your water is coming from and where your food is also related to that coming from. And it's all coming from God as you, your creation, and those before you. That's why I say the message is very simple. Just worship your Creator. It's a universal message, and God addresses it universally to all of humanity. Any thoughts related to this idea? I have some other thoughts, but I'll just hold here for now.
There's an early idea that everything comes from God. You came from God, and everything, whatever you have, comes from God.
Yeah, and therefore worship God. Since everything comes from Him alone, then worship Him alone. Then another connection is regarding the taqwa mentioned here, basically. Worship your Lord, serve your Lord, who created you, that you may beware.
I agree that maybe has to be there. لعل has that perhaps or maybe connotation in
Oh, yeah.
addition to it being purposeful.
Right, but I was going to connect. This is not the first time we saw taqwa. Actually, we saw it previously in the initial section, verse 5, or, sorry, verse 2, right at the beginning. So that is the book in which there is no doubt, a guidance for the wary who believe in the unseen, send the prayer, etc. Those are upon guidance from their Lord, and those are the successful. So the wary are the category who are upon guidance from their Lord. we also remembering how in the previous surah we had asked God for guidance to the upright path. We mentioned how there's multiple citations that demonstrate that the upright path is worshiping God alone. For instance, indeed, God is my Lord and your Lord, so worship him. This is an upright path. So what I'm trying to trace here is the relationship between, it's a very close relationship, basically parallel, between guidance, wariness, taqwa, and worshiping God alone. So in this verse, we have an explicit association of wariness with worshiping God alone. In the previous surah, we had implicit equivalence of guidance with worshiping God alone. And then in the second verse, we have an association between guidance and wariness, taqwa. Technically, that's logically sufficient because each one of those three ideas is associated to each other in one of three verses we've already covered. But basically, just to make it explicit on this verse, I find that this verse is implying that to be wary, to have taqwa, you must serve your Lord who created you. Like for instance, there's another verse, كَيْفَ تَتَّقُونَ إِن كَفَرْتُمْ. How can you be aware if you deny? And then more importantly, there's a verse, اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ حَقَّ تُقَاتِهِ وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Be aware of God, his true wariness, and do not die except while you are submitters.
I don't want to get into the big topic of what taqwa is, but that's like awareness, consciousness. Would it be God consciousness? Being aware of God, being aware of his limitations as well, or being conscious of God and so on.
Yeah, plus with the aspect of being cautious or careful.
Would it be like remember God and also beware of God? Be cautious of God, meaning like beware of God, but like fear God, but also remember Him.
Yeah, because to me, like, if you do not worship God alone, well, now you are not being cautious of Him, nor are you even truly being conscious of Him, because now whatever view you occupy of God between denial or associating partners or whatever is not even what you're focusing on, or your view of God at that point is no longer one of actual consciousness of Him. Like, for instance, you could give a simple example. The children of Israel, when they're worshipping the calf, they've completely lost their consciousness of God, despite they think they're worshipping Him, or whatever, however they thought of that. Plus, they lost their caution of Him, so there's zero taqwa in that. And God is saying you have to worship Him alone. You worship your Creator in order to be, that you may be cautious, that you may be conscious, that you may be aware. Basically, to suggest that you destroy your own relationship with God by associating partners to Him, your ability to connect with God or remember Him. And also, Brother Mahdi adds that farsha is probably implicitly with the fashioning of the lands, so excluding the seas. Considering if this is implied by the Arabic. I think we've had it before, so I'll just look up real quick.
The sea basically rests on the land, on the land relief.
I guess if you consider both the spread and the bina'a, usually they try like give translations like canopy, etc., but more literally related to building anything above, so to speak. But it gives a bit of a sort of, I guess, imagery of or like not imagery, but language that is associated to comfortable, like cushions, I guess, spread, and canopy of shade, I guess, in a desert context, for example, you can picture. Root meaning being to spread, spread out, cover, or furnish. For firash specifically, cushion, pillow, blanket, cover, spread, mattress, bed. Any other thoughts? Grass, I'm not so sure. Maybe not directly. So I guess just once again, the verses are emphasizing that basically the position and the message is actually should be actually obvious, where just worship your creator who has made your environment, made you, made those before you, made your provision, your food, your water. Worship him and do not make for God rivals while you know. So you have two positions that are mentioned, kind of the worshiping of God alone, which is the natural conclusion based on your surroundings and everything and your own existence, or the making of rivals for God while you know. So it's not like a neutral error or just an intellectual error. It's framed as sinister on two levels. Number one, you have knowledge deep down in some form or another of what you're doing due to the clarity of the world around you. Number two, it's not just neutral partners, but God emphasizes rivals, meaning that you are at least claiming to divide his might, divide what is due to him of loyalty, what is due to him of devotion or worship, etc. So they function as rivals.
Did you read 24?
No.
23?
No, not at all. No, not even 23, so I'll read it now. وَإِن كُنتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِّثْلِهِ وَادَّعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ فإن لم تفعلوا ولن تفعلوا فاتقوا النار التي وقودها الناس والحجارة أعدت للكافرين. And if you are in doubt of what we brought down upon our servant, so come with a surah of its likeness, and call your witnesses from besides God if you are honest. So if you do not do, and not will you do, so beware of the fire, which its fuel is people and stones, prepared for the deniers. So another connection already is the mention of the doubt, of course, also connecting back to the first verse, basically, of opening, where that is the book in which there is no doubt, a guidance for the wary. So the book is defined as a guidance itself, and also the book in which there is no doubt. Then we get to this verse where God says, if you are in doubt of what we have sent down upon our servant. So just combining those two alone, already logically doubting the book in which there is no doubt is an incoherent position. It's like you're using the book wrong, is the way I think of it, if you're doubting it. And actually, I find like using the book wrong is quite a nice way to put it, because the book guides you or does not do so, dependent upon how you use it, how you approach it. As God says, it's a guidance for the wary. But if you approach the book with doubt or in a state of denial, then it does not tend to guide you until you reverse that methodology. Then God gives the challenge to, like, if you're in doubt, bring a surah like it. So I had asked, actually, how we're doing this sort of thematic analysis in ChatGPT in one particular chat. So it has a lot of data there on recent surahs. I think we started with Surah 73 when we were doing the AI analysis. And so within that same chat, since it had all that data, I figured I would ask it, can it do what the Quran has challenged, which is to bring a surah like it? Because I thought that it has more than enough data to know that it cannot do so. And AI is like pretty much one of the most eloquent and trusted nowadays sort of resource, arguably. But so let me show you guys what it said. Oh. So I said, can you bring something like the Quran as it challenges? It said, no, I can write elevated Arabic or English prose, imitate rhythm, or compose scripture-like sounding text, but that would not be something like the Quran in the sense of the Quran's own challenge. The Quran's challenge is not saying produce something with rhyme and religious vocabulary. It's closer to saying bring a discourse with the Quran's truth claim, authority, guidance, coherence, moral force, linguistic density, prophetic function, and ability to expose reality.
You are not sharing your screen.
Oh, sorry. Thanks for the reminder. So, just from recent analysis we had done, bringing something like it would mean more than literal beauty. It would require defining God with absolute precision, reorienting one's loyalty to God entirely, exposing moral psychology with devastating economy, function as guidance, judgment, warning, mercy, law, sign, and criterion, producing a coherent worldview across many contexts without contradiction in its core claims, and speaking with the authority of the Lord, not merely the skill of a writer. But arguably, even just one of these aspects would be unreplicatable, let alone all of them together. Actually, interesting thing, like my background, I was a very avid reader growing up. Would read a lot of novels, would read hundreds of pages a day when I was young, like elementary school, fourth grade, what have you. And by the time I read the Quran a good bit later, like I had some experience with reading literature. And when I read chapter 2, within the first few verses, I was already completely convinced and sure it was from God, because nobody is able to speak with that sort of authority, basically, with that sort of use of a language. Like I did not get this far before I was already convinced. It was the first couple of verses.
Authority is also emphasized in standing down. See there, um, 22. He brought down from the sky water, and anzala, and 23. Nazalna, we brought down upon our servants. So that is the authority sending down, bringing down from the source, from basically says it came from above.
And not to belabor the point too much, but if you were to actually attempt this challenge, it would be very, very laughable, because the person would have to bring something like the Quran, even just linguistically, let alone the other, like the actual content and the coherence. But they would have to bring something like the Quran, but they could not copy the Quran, because the Prophet didn't copy anyone. So they would literally have to novelly invent something like the Quran. It's completely impossible. To copy the Quran is impossible, let alone to novelly invent something like this.
Is it possible to talk about the creation while praising someone else other than God?
Say again?
Is it possible to talk about the creation while praising someone else other than God? Because it says witnesses other than God, or min dunillahi. See, even if you were to produce something like it, it would likewise praise God.
Right. That's a good point.
Otherwise, who else would you praise, and who would be your witnesses in what you were fabricating?
Well, it could go several ways, and maybe it's intentionally like not too specific. But if you attempt to praise your partners basically and justify them through your scripture or your surah, then the surah would fail just immediately on its content. It would not define reality any longer accurately, nor would it be from those partners. mistake. Let's go. Cat o'clock.
It's big now.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, so several bases I was kind of saying that it fails under. Number one, you don't actually have witnesses who can testify on its revelation, whereas God has testified, literally in the book as well. Allah yashhadu bima anzala ilayka, I believe. God bears witness as to what He has sent down to you. Your witnesses would not testify that they revealed it. You would have to invent it yourself. You wouldn't have the same authority. The partners that you claim, if it's like a polytheistic leaning, well, then they don't even have a grounding in reality nor authority. Oh. No, she does not need snacks. She asks for snacks after I feed her. It's never enough for her. I fed her like twice recently. She unlocked the ability to jump on the counter. So now she's like scavenging additionally. So verse 24, maybe we should also comment on. Yeah, that's a good point. I heard this as well. So if you do not and you will not, then beware of the fire whose fuel is people and stones ready for the deniers. So it's kind of like, for me, if you suggest that if you're in doubt of it, that means you don't think it's from God, basically. And that's the subject of inquiry. Is it from God or not? Is it true or not? Therefore, well, if it's not from God, then you should be able to reproduce something similar. It's kind of a simple logic. Then, if you cannot reproduce something similar, even with your witnesses, even with your partners, whatever the case, then the premise is already falsified. So beware of the fire whose fuel is its fuel is people and stones ready for the deniers. So any thoughts on up to verse 24?
Beware of the fire, firstly, as it's like if you are not aware of God, if you're not wary of God, you should beware of the fire. That's one. And then readied for the deniers. That means it's, well, it's already there. It's reality.
Yes, and also I would add, yeah, the cat is not liking it, but I would also add that, like doubting the book in which there is no doubt, God is saying basically your doubt with a simple metric, simple logical metric you can try. Your doubt is incoherent and dangerous, therefore, because you're doubting a very weighty message, who your reaction to which determines your eternal outcome, obviously. But beware of the fire, because since you are in doubt, you are close to the fire, if that makes sense. These are associated. You're close to denial, or at it, or at denial, upon denial. Therefore, you should beware of the fire because your doubt is incoherent. And secondly, I would add a point about the fuel is people and stones. Well, or the ignition, the thing that is where the flame is coming out of, basically. So the flame generally tends to come out of wood in our experiences, or charcoal, and that's kind of what I connect the stones to. So you have usual sources of fire, but in this case, the actual source of the fire is the people, so to speak, which is to say, you're not just in the fire, you are the fuel of the fire. You're the thing that's producing the fire.
I connect this back into um, sort of a biomass. Stones not necessarily has to be like stones in literal sense, like rocks and only rocks, but everything. There is an interpretation which likens those stones to idols, but alternatively, that could be all inanimate matter, everything that has no soul, plus that has lost its soul, like the people who um, traded their faith for disbelief, or lost souls, or souls that made God angry.
In reality, obviously, and this would have been known even anciently, stones do not combust because they are fully oxidized, therefore they simply melt just like metal. So I
So that's
basically
also
agree with you.
proof, or say an indication of how strong that fire is.
Well, that's my point. Regardless of how strong the fire is, it would never burn. The stone would never catch on fire per se, because it would, in our current physics with asterisks because it would melt. It would simply just melt into, depending on the stone, somewhere between apparently 600 to 1300 Celsius.
No, but then it's not fuel anymore. There has to be something that fuels the fire. That's the interpretation of idols, but then we know that idols are not only made of stones, they could be made of different, all sorts of materials, and then we can extend that to inanimate matter or whatever, say whatever was used in disobedience of God, but likewise, um, whatever did not make it, all the leftover, all the dross that didn't make it to heaven, basically.
This is a slight tangent, obviously, and a graphic one at that, but contrasting to stone, human flesh is combustible because it is made of organic compounds. However, it does not ignite easily on its own because of the body being 60% water. But basically, the water has to completely evaporate from the cell before the tissue catches fire. And that also would occur after fat liquefies and melts.
Doesn't it have some connection to the water sent down from heaven and the thunderstorm that was mentioned earlier?
Um, could you expand on that?
So whatever the good God sent down upon you will be taken away from you. Whatever the water was given, hydration and so on, it will be taken away from you before you are able to burn.
Yeah, I do tend to agree with, I think, what you said earlier, which is that the stones are more a general, like I connect to charcoal, or it's not literally a stone, but it's stone-like combustible material. So any combustible inanimate material, and then the combustible also human or people.
You know what I'm thinking of here? Okay, so cosmologically, once, um, sorry, whenever everything is destroyed, and some souls gonna go up, make it to heaven, what's gonna be done with the planet itself. Where does the planet go? Whether the remnants of the planet, all that matter, where it goes. These are the stones that I liken it to. But correct me if I'm wrong. So, is there anything, like um, whatever is raised, elevated, and then there is that balanced material that goes down. That would include the planet and the forest and whatever, all this, like stones and wood and whatever the inanimate matter is there, all the garbage that's on Earth.
Well, it's interesting idea. Like the way I see it, no, not this time. The way I see it cosmologically is maybe a bit more complex, but from the human perception, God levels this earth, and the fire takes roughly the geometric place of where the sea is currently, hence beneath us.
Can you elaborate?
On which aspect? Oh,
The way you see it,
oh yeah, sure. So generally,
Why don't you, but I'm sorry, but why don't you just give her a seat nearby?
a seat. I don't think she would care for it, but I don't know. What do you mean exactly?
Well,
She doesn't
this.
want a seat. She wants to cause chaos.
Okay, place her on your lap or give her
Oh
something
yeah,
to
I try this.
maybe give her a box or something.
I literally set up this thing behind. Crazy, like cat tree. See the cat tree?
Yeah, it's too far away from you. She wants to participate.
I don't know if she wants to participate. Whenever I'm on the desk, she wants to jump on it.
To participate.
Or bite. Or just bite.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, basically, a ton of verses that emphasize God leveling the mountains, making everything as a slippery surface. You will see no elevation therein, so everything gets leveled. And he mentions the al-Bahr al-Masjur, like the ignited or filled sea, and falling into the fire and people seeing the fire. So the plane, literally a plane in which people get resurrected upon, has hell beneath them. And فُتِحَتْ السَّمَاءُ فَكَانَتْ أَبْوَابًا, and heaven is opened up, cleft asunder in multiple verses, where it now can be ascended by God's permission. So the arena of judgment is this flat plane, which is cognate to the earth. Then, based upon judgment, the person either falls in the fire beneath them or is ascended into heaven.
So what
But
happens? The mountains will be polarized. What kind of storms are going to hail them?
oh, I'm
Calm
not sure
down.
exactly. Yeah. Oh, she beat me now. Any other points, or shall we read one more verse? Oh, you see?
Well, let's continue next time. But also, you had something from the summary left um, from
Yeah.
the previous session.
That was
Is there anything worth adding?
maybe I didn't really read into it, but I had asked two questions, so I could just go there real quick. Oh man, she's even biting my screens. Okay. Okay, so just to, I'll go quickly. So the people are producing, the people who are guided are producing actual righteous work versus those who are not guided producing corruption. I think we kind of discussed these sufficiently, maybe, so I'll skip ahead. Now, the only other point I made, which may be interesting, is to apply the children of Israel as a case study to the hypocrites in this section, such as the Median Jewish community, etc., that is apparently addressed later at length. Because the initial verses don't single out a particular group, just kind of hypocrites, even does not name hypocrites, but it's clearly a case study of hypocrisy. But then the similar language is used later when addressing the children of Israel, like God says, "Oh, Ya Bani Israel, O children of Israel, remember my blessing upon you," and then addresses many cases of them basically refusing to follow his guidance. And the strongest evidence for this is the fact that the initial kind of hypocrite section is referencing or preparing for, amongst other things, the section on the children of Israel, which is coming up, is the shared expression. When they meet those who believed, they say, "We believed." But when they're alone with their devils, they say, "Indeed, we are with you, we are only mockers." Later, explicitly in the children of Israel section, when they meet those who believe, they say, "We believed." But when they go to each other, they ask, "Are you disclosing to them what God has revealed to you," basically. So basically, just in a brief way to summarize, is that the children of Israel section, where God discusses their like hardness of heart to his guidance, is meant to give a example of hypocrisy of a community that says they believe but don't follow God's guidance regardless. And they also, it makes a big deal in the surah about basically redefining, replacing God's guidance with other doctrines. So like instead of how God said salvation is achieved, they say salvation is by being a Jew or a Christian. Instead of how God said accountability works, they say the fire will never touch us except for a few days. Instead of the food God gives them, they ask for a different food. When God tells them to enter the Holy Land, they say, "No, we're not going to enter." When, like, it's all these examples which are constituting basically hypocrisy and constituting not following God's guidance. So I guess it's just kind of a preview for what we're going to discuss soon, God willing. I guess since I don't have a class today, I have a little bit of extra time. So I guess I'd rather maybe, if you guys are cool with it, I'd rather maybe just read one more verse because it seems to connect better to this section than the other one.
Okay, but wait a minute. This back to the stones and what you read just now about previous section, uh, their their senses have been numbed, and so isn't there a verse that says that their hearts have become like stones or even harder?
Yeah, in this surah, after the one where God like raises a dead person in front of them, then your hearts hardened after that, so they became as stones or harder in stronger in hardness. So that's interesting. I mean, what's really interesting, I guess, for me is the thing that makes stones unique and universally recognized for this kind of is their hardness. And that's how God uses the example in that verse. So the fire being ignited through stones is like the hardest things, the things that are most resistant and technically not even flammable, you could say, are going to be the source of the fire. So the humans then parallel that because they're hard as well of heart. They're resistant, the most resistant, disobedient sort of. Disobedient doesn't apply to the stones, but it's like the fire humbles both inanimate and animate resistance. But anyway, the other side is verse 25. وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ أَنَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٌ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ كُلَّمَا رُزِقُوا مِنْهَا مِنْ ثَمَرَاتٍ رِزْقًا قَالُوا هَذَا الَّذِي رُزِقْنَا مِنْ قَبْلُ وَأُوتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا أَزْوَاجٌ مُطَهَّرَةٌ وَهُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. And tag those who believed and worked righteousness, that for them are gardens beneath which rivers flow. Every time they're provided therein of fruit as provision, they said, this is that which we were provided before. And they're given it resembling, and for them therein are cleansed spouses, and they therein are eternal. Actually, one point we didn't mention that came to my mind just now is that this is the first mention, like in order of the Mus'haf, of reading the Quran in its proper order, so to speak, of the destination explicitly, I believe. So you have the fire in verse 24 for the first time, and you have the gardens in verse 25 for the first time.
There's yet another mention of water here.
Of what, sorry?
Of water. Water in the gardens, from beneath them the rivers flow.
And the repetition of أخرج لكم من الثمرات رزقا لكم. Through the water of the fruits as provision for you. And now we have the rivers, the water, like you say, and they're provided with provision, and they recognize it's what they were provided before. So it's both a repetition of the emphasis on our current provision, but also the person is recognizing the repetition. So basically, I don't think this recognition is irrelevant. That's part of the point. Like the person who is in the garden, he recognizes that it's from God, and he also recognized while he was alive, so to speak, that it was from God, and he associates like this. I was already provided this, so he's familiar with this. And when God told us to worship Him, that we may beware, just when we started today in that verse, He mentions the provision of the fruits and the water, meaning it was phrased like it's obvious. You're provided your fruits, water comes down from the sky, food comes out of the ground. Worship your Lord who did this. Worship your Creator and your Provider. So basically, acknowledge that it's from God now. And those who acknowledge that it's from God now and take the orientation of worshiping Him alone, they also are provided later. But those who don't recognize it now also don't get this positive recognition later.
I still see it as so whatever's being provided to you now, and you'll get more of that, innumerably more of that in the hereafter, or else everything will be taken away. Whatever the grace God has given you will be taken away, and you'll go down to the hellfire. There is also resembling what you had. It's kind of what you had, but better, more, better, and bigger, and all that. As opposed to like being stripped out of water, becoming feral.
It's interesting how also it's kind of like one of the most detailed descriptions in a single verse for the garden. Usually we have the repetitive formula, gardens beneath which rivers flow, sometimes with eternal therein. Here it's gardens beneath which rivers flow. The eternal part is added last, and it instead focuses on the provision of fruits and the cleansed spouses before mentioning the eternal nature. So it's kind of like efficiently within one verse, it summarizes what paradise is. Any other thoughts? Final thoughts?
Yes, probably also that God consciousness, being aware of God, being wary of God is what um like opening your heart to God, to his guidance, being aware of him, or God consciousness in other words. That is something that can, if you if I may say so, open paradise for you. So being receptive to guidance is how you receive reward.
Yeah, that was so perfectly said, alhamdulillah. Being receptive to guidance results in and guidance concerns the destination by definition. It's directional, therefore it's about going somewhere. Then denying, being, repulsing towards guidance results in no guidance, and even worse than that, the opposite, which is denied. It's them, they do not believe. When they're in the state of denial, the guidance involves avoiding punishment. They need guidance to avoid punishment, but they close themselves off to guidance by denying. And I guess also for the cleansed spouses, you can say how not just the environment is blissful and eternal, but also the companions are similarly blissful. There's no evil or filth or bad company, basically. So, any final thoughts? Last call. Okay, inshallah, we have our next session after tomorrow, same time as today. So hope to see you there, inshallah. Thank you all for joining. Till next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Till next time. Thank you.